and this was in an afternoon, low tide, and pre-harbor, of course. And we were walking along the tide pools, and I'd quickly lost interest in the tide pools because I was watching these guys surf, and it was glassy, backlit, about 4 feet, and these guys were gliding along these electric green walls, and it was nice and quiet, serene, and I just thought, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen. And so I was attracted to surfing right from the get-go. And so when we moved to Newport, I spent a couple of years. I think I started about the same time as you. I started in 7th grade, and the first 2 years I spent a lot of time going to the beach with Dale Christensen and Blair Stone. They lived right down the alley from me.
Oh yeah, I remember. Yep.
And they had older brothers, both of them that were 4 years older. So they are already surfing, and they were into what we did all summer, as you probably did, was just body surf all summer. Got used to the ocean, got used to reading waves. I still didn't have that much experience, but enough, and developed good swimming. And then my neighbor, you remember Tom Berg?
Oh yeah, Tom. Yeah. Good old Tom. Yeah.
Yeah, quite a character.
Yeah.
Anyway, he had he wanted to buy a new board, and he didn't have enough money. And this was when Joe Quigg was still working in Newport, and he needed $35 so he could get his new Herbie Torrens model. And so he talked my dad into buying his old Quigg, and a thing weighed 35 pounds. I could barely carry it into my arm. And so I started surfing, and I remember the first time I went down, it was Easter week, and I remember all the like the pier urchins, the Sides brothers, and
the back junior back, right?
Junior, all that cast of characters that were just, if you were a kook, they let you know it. And of course, I was a kook. I couldn't surf, and they made fun of me carrying my board down to the beach, and but I went out there and tried, and I finally got this, caught a wave, and I cut across the face, for the first time. And it was like the greatest experience of my life. And it was like, from that moment, I was hooked. And so I couldn't stop after that. I always wanted to duplicate that feeling, which I still think is the best in surfing, is just that simple glide,
Yeah, and what's so kind of phenomenal, you really caught on really fast. I remember my time, you caught on surfing really fast in terms of getting good at it. Because I remember even by that time, we had a sophomore year an English teacher. I remember the guy, wearing had the gun in his holster, and you told me about this place that you discovered, Viewpoint. You remember good old Viewpoint, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And so you were the one that introduced me to Viewpoint, and by then, to be honest, that's when I think that was the beginning of the shortboard revolution, and by then, well, in my eyes and my brothers, you were surfing so far beyond what the average surfer was at that time. I think some surfers are born with natural abilities. You were obviously, in my eyes, one of those. For me, whatever I did, I had to do a lot of practice. And then that's, you know, I would say I was a good surfer, but never a great surfer. You know, I totally respected the ocean,
Yeah.
and it doesn't matter your ability level. You know, when it comes to surfing, as you know, it's the pure joy of surfing.
Yeah,
So
I would have been happy at any level.
yeah, yeah,
I mean,
exactly,
and because
exactly.
that wasn't the point for
Yeah.
me, you know.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. You know, and I knew that. You know, John and I knew that. You know, like I always have the analogy. You know, the sun in the sky, it just shines. It doesn't have to prove. Hey, you know,
yeah, yeah,
look at me. I'm the sun. You know, without me, you're gonna die. But the sun just shines, and your surfing kind of express that, you know, that just the pure harmony. You know, I would call that harmony. You knew how to be in harmony with the wave, and you, in my eyes, you know, that the wave was in harmony with you. So it's kind of like almost like a symbiotic relationship. You needed the ocean, and yet at the same time, you know, the ocean loves, you know, when people love it back. You know, there's a love
no
affair
question.
with nature. You
Yeah,
know, and
I agree with that. I agree 100. And you know, I appreciate, you know, your kind words, but and I do agree that uh, you do get rewarded if you really love something, um, uh, because the ocean is alive and it has energy, and I think um, it knows when there's somebody just there to take or somebody to also share. You know what I mean?
yeah, exactly.
But I would have, like I said, I would have been happy at any level that I got to. Um,
Hmm.
I mean, there was something I always had sort of a natural affinity towards motion and smooth motion. Like
Hmm.
I would at the playground, you know, years when I was very young, I would take the swing sets. There'd be three swings in a row, and I would take the two on the side, and I would loop them around the pole so they'd be out of the way, and I would manipulate the chains in such a way where I'd go in a big oblong circle instead of swinging back and forth.
Oh wow,
And,
okay. Oh wow.
and I really like that motion, that fluid motion, that real smooth motion. And
Hmm.
if I ever went to amusement parks, I didn't like the rides that were jerky. You know, I like things that were really smooth
Hmm.
and not necessarily straight line stuff, but turning, but smooth turns. You know,
Hmm.
I always had that sort of built in, and I think that was really helpful in surfing because that's how I like to surf, and it helped me.
Hmm. Yeah. Wow. So from there, you know, from seventh grade, let's go back to our first days at the ranch.
Oh,
Um, you know, you know, for me, every single time I see Joyce Caldwell, you know, I cannot give her enough praise, you know, because she was the one, you know, who, as you remember, maybe
yep,
that was responsible for that. So I even I have a chapter in my book, Family and Friends, you know, on Joyce Caldwell, and I talk about how incredible. We were only what 16 years old, and her dad had enough confidence enough that we would not screw up by going to the ranch. We would not give him a bad name. You know, he basically, John and I, he made us almost a member of his family in
wow,
terms of I trust you. You know, and so and from that, you know, I got to invite, you know, my friends, you know, to the ranch, and you got invited by Doug Snyder at the same time.
yeah,
So And someday, what I want to do is a Zoom session with all the people that I know, who were affected by going to the ranch through Joyce, and talk to her, because she loves, when we talk about the ranch. Every time I in Facebook I put something about the ranch and there's a picture, she comes back, and says, wow, my dad knew how much you guys loved the ocean.
Wow.
So even back then, it's kind of amazing that my parents don't, not my friends' parents, even could see someone that loved the ocean and had the passion for it. So.
Well, I'm certainly appreciative. I didn't know Joyce, but all I heard was good things about her. Over the years, I never heard anybody say anything negative about her, but I'm also really appreciative because it wasn't lost on me that those were just like rare opportunities that were they would never be duplicated. I mean, I look back on those trips and they're the best surfing experiences in my life.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I got jaded early because they were so good. It's how do you top this,
Exactly. Yeah, like I'll never forget surfing at rights and lefts. Oh my gosh, oh geez.
Alone.
Yeah, alone. Yeah, and then going in springtime and seeing all the poppies, the flowers everywhere, and then camping at night. There's like thousands of stars. It's just like I felt like a human being that the universe was giving us a unique gift and saying, cherish this, because it's not always going to be this way. Back then there wasn't any politics, that, and as you said, the Santa Barbara Surf Club, had to leave early,
Yeah. They gave us stink eye on the way out, boy. We were just going to surf it till dark. It was so great. But yeah, I knew I did a lot of dumb stuff when I was a kid and when I was young and was pretty naive and foolish in a lot of ways. But in this respect, I knew at the time that this was very rare and unique, and we were extremely fortunate.
Yeah, definitely. So then, and let's talk about in the 70s. You went to the Hawaiian Islands, to Oahu for, I'm not sure, about a year, and it seems to me you said you became good friends with Michael Peterson at that time.
Yeah, well, as good a friend as you could be. I mean, I was very sympathetic to him because I got to know him on a personal level, and I saw how he interacted with people and so many people wanting a piece of him. Because he was regarded as like maybe the best surfer in the world at that time, or one of the two or three. And he suffered from paranoid schizophrenia, and it was in its earlier phase, but I could tell that he was a sort of a tortured soul.
Yeah.
And so I'm more of a sensitive type person, so I understood what he was going through to a degree. I didn't know it was that serious with him. I just thought he was very, very shy and reluctant to open up and let his guard down because everybody wanted something from him,
Yeah.
And so we hit it off, and we surfed a lot together, and he liked my surfing, appreciated it, and I think I could tell he was like, I could just blend into the woodwork out of the water. Nobody was rushing for me for autographs,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Uh-huh.
So I just faded into the background, you know, and he couldn't.
Hmm.
And I could tell he was like, you know, he kind of made a deal with the devil, you know, for him.
Hmm. Yeah.
He wanted fame, he wanted to make money out of surfing, but he really wasn't equipped to handle it.
Hmm. Yeah. Seems to me like his life. Well, actually, you kind of made a lot more gentler by being kind. You're not, trying to take advantage of someone's fame, or being in that group of famous people. You were there, just as a human being, and I think people, who have those mental conditions can pick that up. They're really extremely sensitive to a point
Oh, no
where
question.
yeah,
No question. You're right.
yeah,
Absolutely. And
yeah.
I think that's why he allowed me into his world a little bit.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Yeah, every time you tell me that story, I can see how sensitive he is, and it would be extremely hard, especially in the surfing world. Professionals who just got started, competition, that whole thing of going away from the Hawaiians. True meaning of surfing was
Right.
to be in harmony with the ocean.
Exactly.
Chill out. They would see all these, Westerners, from the States, Hallies come over and try to dominate the waves and to take over the morning sessions where the Hawaiians would say, hey, surfer's always there, chill out, where
Right.
this our lifestyle is in harmony, with nature, with the waves. We don't have anything to prove, but unfortunately, a competition, comes in the scene, and it's come a long way. You just think of back when we were in the '60s. Corky Carroll won a contest, and they gave him a TV set, and that was pretty. Wow, he got a color TV set.
Yeah. 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 That was a big deal. Well, and and he got more than most back then because he was a good contest surfer. He knew the formula to win contests. Plus, he was a good surfer.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, yeah. Oh, definitely. Oh, yeah.
And,
Oh, uh-huh.
but he still wasn't. He still wasn't making much money to speak of.
Hmm.
Uh, and yeah, I think it was inevitable. That commercialization was going to find its way into surfing, but I never understood surfers that champion that endeavor, that effort, because it's like, well, we've got something great going here. Let's kind of keep it on the down low.
Exactly. Exactly. I know. To be honest, I think that's why I got involved with meditation, because
Yeah,
nobody could rip off that wave inside.
right.
I think I got kind of somewhat depressed with surfing in California in the '70s when I just saw, what was pristine. You think only 6 years early, we could go to river jetties and have it all to ourselves.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah.
I remember one Christmas morning, I think it was a junior or senior year, you and I went surfing at 22nd Street. And it was a solid swell, solid 6 foot Newport, which is, a good size. And we had it all to ourselves. I you know, you know, you can never have that today.
No. No, of course
And I
not.
think that's probably one reason why you moved to Oregon. Is that in terms of Oregon is still I would imagine still pristine country
Oh, it
for
is.
surfing, isn't it?
Well, it's funny because you remember speaking about Dale earlier. Him and his wife were just here for a few days. We went for walks along the beach and stuff, and the thing about this coast is man can't tame it.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Nature will take it all back.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you try to get too cute with what you develop here on this coast. it'll take it all back.
Mm-hmm.
And so people leave it alone because they have to, not because
Yeah.
they want to, they have to.
Yeah. 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 Right.
And that's the nice thing about it. We still you can still show up at a given beach and there'll be a sandbar that wasn't there yesterday.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
And it can be good. And if you happen to look at it, well, then you're the only one that knows about it.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's how California used to be when the sand could travel up and down the coast.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't all, uh, bottled up by jetties and harbors. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and the river mouths weren't filled with concrete. The rivers weren't filled with concrete. So
Mm-hmm.
there's no silt coming out of them, So but Southern California, you can do that because nature's not that harsh.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
here, you can't do that here.
Mm-hmm.
It's a waste.
Because I remember, I never saw the Balboa Peninsula surfed, and then I remember you told me you spent some considerable amount of time surfing incredible waves there. But when I was a kid, that didn't exist. So those waves came and gone, didn't they?
Yeah, well, they were always there because I know, like, do you remember John Schmitz?
Yeah, yeah, oh yeah, I know John. Yeah, yeah. Uh-huh. He went to the ranch with us a couple times. So.
Well, yeah, he lived down towards the wedge, and he was tuned. He knew that there was waves that broke on that side of the Newport Pier. But I was surprised. See, I just went down there in the summertime to like to 15th Street, where they're just walls with those south swells.
Yeah.
I didn't realize in the winter with the west and the northwest that there were good waves that broke down there, but nobody surfed there. It was like so many other spots back then. You didn't need to.
Mm-hmm.
There are better waves at River Jetty.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
you know what I mean? It's not like now where every single nook and cranny is surfed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right.
You just go where the best waves are River Jetty, so let's go there. The best waves are Blacks. Ooh, I don't need 15th Street,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, the attitude. You remember when we would go up and down the coast or surf Huntington Cliffs or something like that, and we would drive and you'd see a couple guys out at River Jetty and you wouldn't see anybody else surfing all the way to Huntington Pier.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah. Uh-huh.
And then you'd see a couple guys out at the cliffs, and then you'd head north of that, and I would never see guys out. Maybe a few guys at Golden West Street. I mean, it was
Mm-hmm.
you didn't have to surf those like secondary spots.
Yeah, yeah.
The
Uh-huh.
best spots were wide open.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really as their surfing population grew, then the number of spots grew, and they weren't the best spots, but people still surfed them because there was so many people.
Mm-hmm. Also, I got a question. What when they had that transition from going from longboards to shortboards, it's kind of like a different dance style. So
Yeah.
what looking back now, I know both of them are different and unique, but do you have a certain flow of dancing that you like, or do you like all the styles of the dancing? With longboard, it's all flowing, isn't it? That there's no jerky movements. With shortboards, people be kind of, some are fantastic, dancers. Like David Nuia was one who was incredible both ways. But I kind of want to get your feelings, because it was a major transformation in surfing.
Well, it was exciting. It was nice to be young at that time.
Yeah.
Because and still in a formative stage, because it was easy for me to adapt. I wasn't that accomplished on a longboard. I had only been surfing one for a couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
before the shortboard revolution hit. So I was okay. I wasn't anything like Junior. I mean, Junior was he was pro level.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 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 exactly. Yeah.
You know, in seventh grade, I remember Mr. Noren. They had that Horace Ensign surf contest, and Mr. Noren asked Junior. He goes, you gonna surf in the contest, Roman? And he goes, yeah. And he goes, are you gonna win it? And Junior goes, yep. And he did
Yeah.
easily.
Yeah.
Because in seventh grade, he was probably a better longboarder than anybody even in Harbor at that time.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
So, but I wasn't very good. I mean, I was okay. I mean, I was decent. I probably would have got pretty okay on a longboard.
Yeah.
But in 2 years, the shortboard revolution came along, and Chuck Moyer was a board builder. I don't know if you remember that name in Newport.
Oh yeah, I remember it. Yeah, yeah. Uh-huh.
He took over for when Quigg went to Hawaii. He was building boards out of that shop, or that where Quigg was building, and he made a couple of my first short boards, and he was really astute in what you needed as far as equipment. I wasn't really conscious of that yet. I didn't understand what I was riding very well at the time. So he was the kind of guy, he'd ask you how good you could surf, and then he'd walk down to the beach and watch to see if you were as good as you thought you were. And he made me a couple of custom boards that were perfect for me for that transit.
Wow.
And I credit him for giving me a huge head start over most people.
Mm-hmm.
So I was really fortunate in that regard.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah,
then
I never heard of shapers doing that before. Wow.
he would do it, you know, because he was really conscientious about making a board that was right for you.
Wow.
And I think a lot of it had to do was because he didn't want to hear any complaints.
Yeah. Right.
Who needs complaints, right?
Yeah.
None of us like complaints.
Exactly.
So he would build your board. He knew how you surfed and what could allow you to progress, and that's what he made for me. And so it was fantastic. And then he moved somewhere, and then I hooked up with as boards. Then all of a sudden the Wayne Lynch stuff started showing up, you know, and everybody in Newport started making those egg boards. You remember, like Marty Gilchrist?
Yeah, I remember. Yeah.
Marty and oh gosh, who else? Dave Johnson, who
Dave. Okay. Yeah.
who ended up shaping his own label, Progressive, up in Santa Barbara.
Mm-hmm.
And then
was Jeff Timponi doing that?
Timponi was not. No, Timponi.
Okay.
This is way before Timponi. This is still in high school.
Oh, it's still okay. Oh, okay.
Still in high school. I think I was late in my junior year, and I got Jeff Kennard to shape me boards. Remember Jeff Kennard?
Yeah, I remember that name. Yeah.
And he was a year behind us, but he was a good surfer. He surfed a lot with Billy Bear.
Oh yeah. Okay. Oh.
He was friends with Bill Bear.
Okay.
And they were friends with Scott Price.
And Scott Price. Yeah. Okay.
He was making his own eggs. But Scott Price was a tremendous influence on me. I thought he was fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
But Jeff Kennard that's when I started designing my own boards and making my own fins. I started becoming aware of what was working for me, and I'd watch the shaper shape, and I'd tell him exactly what I wanted, and then I would make my own fins and place them.
Wow. I never knew about this.
Yeah, I sort of had just a natural knack for design and what would
Yeah.
work for me. And it was all about, it has to look aesthetically pleasing.
Hmm.
And if it does, that's usually a good board.
Yeah.
Um,
Uh-huh.
but anyway, so, but I remember I made a fin sheet, and I cut out a fin on my old man's bandsaw, and I ruined his blade, and those blades cost probably about $100 back in 1970.
Oh my God.
And
So,
he hit the ceiling, he was so pissed. It cost me $100 to rough out one fin,
oh
but it
God.
cost him $100 for me to do it.
Yeah. Oh my God. So,
So,
remember, your dad called me Electric Man. Remember that? Huh.
oh yeah, well he was tuned. I mean,
Uh-huh.
he was aware that you had a little extra in your electrical field. You
Mhm.
emitted a little more juice,
Yeah.
than the average Joe. I
Yeah,
was
but it
just
was kind
I
of
was,
phenomenal because he said my voice sounded like electric computer. But just think, most of my life I was involved being a software engineer. I was involved with computers. So your dad, in a sense, by saying that, he tapped into something that maybe his conscious didn't know, but his subconscious did know.
yeah. Oh,
Because
no doubt.
and I always remember that to the day, after, each year I've been a software engineer. I think about your dear old dad and what he had to say.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a way to bring, that connection and laughter, together. We say things out of the ordinary, and we don't know a lot of times how much wisdom is backing us up. And your dad was a prime example of that.
Yeah, well, he picked up on your energy, I mean, and right away, it's and your brother still has that energy, but you emit he's a little bit more laid back than you
Mhm.
are. In my opinion, this is how I've always seen you guys. You have a
Yeah,
little bit more of that energy coming off you at all times, and he's
yeah,
little bit more subdued.
yeah. Well, especially in terms of when I was 18, my brother went to, say, Orange Coast College, and that's when I started my surfing meditation journey around the world. It took a lot of, in one way, courage, for me to go outside Newports, because I was, to be honest, as a kid, I was scared shitless of the dark, because once upon a time, I had a newspaper route, and this was at night. I was collecting money, and I was at Kevin Charles' house, and I went collected money, and I went out, and some adult was in the bushes, and he was shouting, "Hey kid, come here!" I
Oh,
ran as fast as I could, and it took all the way through senior year of high school to overcome that fear. Every time, even when I had to take out garbage, from our kitchen to the garbage cans, I was petrified. And yet I knew that I wanted to surf, and I wanted to learn how to meditate and travel around the world. And I thought, well, how can I do this if I can't overcome my fear of the dark?
right.
So, and now, that fear has been, ever since I took that one step on my journey, that fear is gone. And it's the fear of the unknown. We don't like change.
Yeah, I think it's the dark the dark is becomes is kind of a more of a metaphor for the unknown.
Yeah,
Don't
yeah.
you think? Because it's not the dark per se. It's
Mhm.
it's like when I used to go over to Dale's house down the alley. I'd walk to the under the street light, and then I would sprint home, thinking that nobody can catch me if I run as fast as I can. And it wasn't because it was so dark. It was because, you know, I didn't know what was down that alley. You know,
Yeah, Yeah.
I mean, I don't even know why I was fearful. Nothing ever happened. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
I still had that sense of trepidation every time I ran down that alley. You know.
Mhm. Yeah, so that's what I had overcome, because I imagine I hitchhiked from France to India with my surfboard. Imagine going to places like Turkey and Iran, Afghanistan, Pakistan, and then India. I look back now, wow, what a journey, that was.
Well, there's something about your personality, Rick, that is unique, and I think this is it's disarming, and I think that was the key for you to just be able to be accepted.
Mhm.
You have a certain disarming quality about you, where you don't come across as being a threatening
Yeah.
person, and I think that's probably uh, done well for you over the years. As far as just traveling to the unknown and meeting people that you don't know,
Mhm.
because you don't come across as like uh, wanting to get something from them.
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, I'll tell you, there's a lot. Here's a funny story. Is that I was in Africa with Collie Rodriguez. We were in the middle of nowhere. There's two guys were giving us a ride on a dirt road. All of a sudden, they get out of the car. They have two shotguns, and they shoot a cow. And then they tell us that that was an elephant. Well, for me, I knew not to say a thing, not to say no, it wasn't. I said yes, that was an elephant, and I learned, over time, is in a time of adversity, it's best to remain silent.
Yeah.
Uh, and also at the same time, I knew when I was a lot of times hitchhiking, I would be picked up by unruly, individuals. But when they found out I was interested in their culture, I wanted to know, about their belief systems. I was interested in their cuisine and their food. You could just see, that angry, anger or against an American just melt. And here it was, was a human being wants
Yeah.
to know about our society, our ways, and I think that kind of melts, anyone's hearts,
I agree.
if
Yeah.
you're interested in them, not wanting anything from them, but to share with them. And I think that's what personally saved me on the trips around the world, as you were saying.
Oh,
That
I'm sure it is. I'm sure it is. It's you project a different aura when you're, say, smuggling cocaine.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
You know,
exactly. Yeah, exactly.
and
Right.
so you're liable to get a lot of that energy back.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
it's I think it's just that simple. You know.
Well, I have a feeling, personally, you have that same kind of aura. The, the way I look at it, when I was in India, they said, tell me the company of the people that you connect with, and I'll tell you who you are. So
Right.
just think, at a young age, we were involved with surfing. We had that common denominator, the love for the ocean, and knowing how precious, the ocean is. And that goes into our subconscious. I feel like both of us are kind of representatives of the ocean, that with the, and the ocean knows that, and the ocean has respect when someone has that love affair with the ocean. We're not into polluting, the ocean. We don't want to see, unfortunately, plastic bags, huge, hundred
Yeah.
thousand miles or acres, of trash. Uh, that kind of just hurts us. So
Yeah. No, I agree. I completely agree. Like I said, I think it's a living thing that has, uh, mm, it's hard to say. It's not living in the sense like a dolphin is living, you know, but
mhm.
it still has a sense of what's in it, you know,
Yeah,
I think,
yeah.
because
And it's kind of like,
I've been rewarded in ways that people wouldn't, they probably wouldn't believe. They think I was kind of like off in la la land, you know, with some of the things that I've experienced in the water, as far as having things just come to me, you know.
mhm.
And I don't think it's an accident. I don't think it was just because I was lucky, although I am lucky, but that's not why.
Yeah. Well, the ocean gives, and when the my theory is the more you pay attention to something, the more it just pays attention to you,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
If you go to the ocean and you're totally oblivious, and
yeah,
you
yeah,
know,
yeah,
versus someone, it's almost like my prayer. I'm sure your prayer is the ocean. When you're in the ocean, and it's a prayer without words.
right.
No words need to be spoken.
Yeah,
Silence.
yeah,
I kind of look like we're now turning almost to the old man in the sea. And yet it's really incredible. That uh, uh, I you I never could imagine 50 some odd years ago that here we are now, and and my theory is that the older you get, the faster time goes.
oh, no
That's
question,
yeah.
no question.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
We're going back to sex.
I wish it wasn't true, but I know
Yeah,
it
yeah, exactly.
is.
Yeah. But what I like, is through meditation, I know that this is an infinite journey. That granted, this human body, it's going to go back to the source. Nobody gets a free ride. And 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 nobody can get a second body while you're alive. So
No,
that's why I got involved with preventative medicine when I was 18 years old. Somehow I had the wisdom inside of me to say, I'm going to take care of this body. I don't believe in Western medicine, because Western medicine mostly is push-pull energy, right? You take
yeah,
a pill and it has a side effect.
right.
Even you watch these commercials on TV and it can
Oh,
cause death.
yeah, yeah.
And then I
They're
say to
almost
myself,
they actually they play like a comedy.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Just like the side effects, there's so many side effects and that are so deadly. And it's like you get done with a commercial and you think, why the hell would anybody take this stuff?
Yeah. But my view of the world is common sense is uncommon. What we are talking about should be common sense.
Yeah,
And I think, this is my personal fear. The more a society goes away from nature,
yeah,
the more neurotic a society will be, the more division a society will be, the more blaming, the more, I'm going to wear a mask, I'm not going to wear a mask, where all the common sense, gets thrown out the door.
right. No,
Because
I agree.
go ahead.
Well, I think you're right, and I think I think that the people that control the system, they want it that way, because they profit from it,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
and so it's up to every individual just try to not go down the path of that our human overlords want us to follow, which is, what would I say? It's become sort of demonic in a sense. I mean, it's really, it's a degraded way of living. And I think the more you live within the natural world, the better off you are.
Yeah.
This entertainment, constant entertainment, is constantly on your media. I don't think that's good for people.
No. Yeah. Oh, I totally agree with that. Yeah. And for me, it's kind of like, breathing is like surfing. Just think, every breath you take is a wave, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And most human beings aren't aware of it. And just think, if we, as a civilization, imagine if every single moment we connected to that wave, to the essence of breath. Because without our breath, try to hold your breath for 10, 15 minutes, without breath, a person is deader than a doornail. So then, and for me, it's a wave, isn't it? There's I call it, it's almost like a cosmic wave is keeping us alive. And that's why we feel maybe so much in harmony with the ocean, because the ocean is the ocean of life for us. If there's no ocean, there's no life on Earth, right? Without water.
Yeah, well, I think that, the culture, the popular culture, it tries to detour you from that. I like what you said about your breathing being a wave, and just if people just connected on that simple level,
Mm-hmm.
it just would serve humanity a lot better.
Yeah.
Now, with your meditation, how long do you meditate every day?
Usually about an hour and a half a day. I've been doing that. In the beginning, I would meditate for 5-6 hours.
Wow.
For me, I have a love of it. I mean, it's, talking about and touching the source. It kind of, I don't think I can meditate for 1 trillion years and it will still be one step, on that journey. Then I can't even begin to tell you how it's as real as surfing. Let's put it that way. Imagine, closing your eyes, and there's a universe of light, inside of us. Quantum, that the mystics and the quantum scientists are both talking about the same thing. Before, I thought meditation was the kingdom of heaven, but now I realize, no, it's the quantum field. That's what I'm seeing. That's what I'm being connected to, is the quantum field. The quantum field exists in all dimensions, past, present, and future. It's infinite. And it took me, good 45 years, to realize that the mystics and the scientists were both talking about the same thing.
I think that's, people describe it in different ways. And I know when my dad died, I had an experience where I kind of went into a dimension of, and it was right when he died. I went into the sort of a dimension where this is exactly how it felt. there was no past, there was no present, there was no future. And I feel like I got a little glimpse into the infinite. And it was eye-opening. I mean, it was a revelation, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I suspect that's where you try to go with your meditation, is that state.
Yeah. And well, it's like, 45 years ago or 48 years ago, when I first started to learn how to meditate, it would take me an hour to get into that state that
Yeah.
you're talking with. And now I close my eyes and I'm automatically there.
Wow.
And it's just like, remember what I was saying, the more you pay attention to something, the more attention it pays to you. Well, it's the same thing with the quantum field, and the universe is your best friend, but we don't know it, it's keeping us alive, there's no, as people say, oh, the universe can't exist inside. Well, tell me, if quantum energy exists everywhere, how is it gonna exclude you? Hey, Nick Roth, I'm not, I'm gonna exclude you from the picture. Then it's not infinite, is it?
I agree with that. I agree, because I find that any exclusionary belief is not valid.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, you know what I mean, is where you have to say, pray to certain people or deities or whatever. Anything that's exclusionary, I think, is wrong.
Yep. Oh, I totally agree with that.
Because
and I also feel like we are all chemists, every single one of us.
Mm-hmm.
Our chemistry is inside of us. Just think, when a person gets angry, which turn on the news.
Yeah, right.
And just think, the moment a person gets angry, automatically 1,500 chemicals, harmful chemicals, gets released in the human body. Scientists have now proven this. So and in Western society, they can't even turn off the faucet of adrenaline. So and this was, I've been learning this, studying this for the past. My passion also is science. I love to learn, the latest scientific discoveries, especially when it pertains to our human body.
Mm-hmm.
And scientists know that we can overcome that system. 95% of our actions come from our subconscious, while only 5% comes from our conscious. So being aware in meditation, we can actually then reprogram. And that's why I like being a programmer, for 35 years. I took that concept and now I program myself. I'm rewiring my own circuits. So everyone gets angry, that's our bodies are wired for that. But what we do with that anger is a different thing. So instead of holding on to it and let it fester, and we're a person. You and I, we let's say when we were kids, whenever we felt angry or just pissed off towards the world, what would we do? We would go into the ocean, right? We would surf. After surfing, we would come out of the water. That we would have a care in the world.
Yeah.
So and that's the way, that meditation is the same way for me. Everyone has their own different expressions. Yours is from what I've seen, is the wave of life. That feeling of being in the ocean doesn't escape you while you're on land.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah. See, and I think that's a precious gift that surfing gave you. So we're all hardwired differently. What works for one person is poison for another person. There's no one set all solution, is there?
No, I think it's just like, I just try to flow through any situation and not.
Mm-hmm.
I guess that's all you can do,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, and talking about flowing, recently that I read this book, The Tao Te Ching, which is by Lao Tzu. It is about 2,500 years old. And imagine this, I've had this on my bookshelf for a good 40 years. I pick up chapter one, I read it, I liked it, and I couldn't go any further. So during the shutdown, I decided, okay, well, I'm going to master this book. I'm going to learn, what this book, has to offer. So I went through the 81 chapters, a chapter a day. Basically, it's one page a day. And then I did a commentary on it. And basically, Lao Tzu was kind of even talking about surfing back then, where he said, just like the sun, has nothing to prove, it shines. That water is the softest element on earth, but it's the most powerful element on earth. You don't want to mess, with water. It has both sides of the coin,
Right.
but its nature is calming. Its nature is in harmony, and he was even warning, the Chinese back then, saying that basically the same situation they had in China back then is the same situation we have in the United States today.
Wow. Interesting.
And even the terms of ruling, he says you want a ruler not to rule with an iron fist. You want a ruler to have the heart of a child who's interested, and governing not by rules, but with wisdom, with love, patience, tolerance. And you never want to rule over anybody. You want everyone to be at the same level, because in essence, we are all at the same level. So this is the kind of stuff, that I learned, and he
Oh,
goes
it's
all
great.
about
It's great.
politics.
I think there's a lot of people in charge of things that should read that book
Yeah, you go.
because they're not doing it.
Yeah, and they have no intentions to either.
No, they don't. No, but those things they'll correct. I mean, they have to. It's inevitable.
Uh-huh. So yeah, this is definitely an incredible journey. That's why, my brother is looking forward, to listening to this, because he says, what, because John was always, interested in your life, and somewhat, I don't know if you're, well, it's not guarded, but you're kind of protective here, in terms of, well, there's no ego there, no showmanship. This is what what you get, with Nick. It's deep, but most people, I don't think they understand deepness.
Well, I'm not trying to be deep.
Well, I know I say,
I'm trying to reflect
yeah,
honestly.
but what I'm saying is, the deeper a person is in my eyes, the more I want to be around that person.
I enjoy deep conversation. I really, I because the older I get, the more I don't know. It's endless, and that's one thing I don't mind about getting older, is that I love to learn, and I was resistant to it because of the way this most of our teachers weren't really interested in being there any more than I was.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
If I find something that interests me, I go all in. And with the internet, there's no limit to how much you can learn.
Mhm.
And so it's just, that's the one nice thing about being older. The best thing for me is it's has stoked my curiosity to learn.
Mhm. Yeah, I think that's the driving force in my life. Just think, for 4 years ago, I've written over 25 books in 4 years. I had done like 81, CD collections, and what it is, there will never be enough, in terms of growing and learning, as you say, it's boundless, it's endless, isn't it? That's
Yeah, that's one reason I wish, we didn't die when we do, because I don't think that's interest is ever going to wane.
yeah, no,
Yeah.
but I think personally, as a society, we can live a lot longer that we're programmed to.
I would agree. Totally.
People think
Yeah.
that 80 years old or 90 is the limit, and so imagine you have the subconscious 90 is the limit, 90 is the limit, 90 is the limit.
Yeah.
And I have friends who live their life like that. I have one guy who's 60 years old, and he tells me he's going to retire in 1 year because he knows by the time he's 80 that he'll probably die. And I tell him, hey Bruce, what your thoughts are powerful. What you program in your mind, and you tell it to go down to the subconscious. I'm going to die when I'm 80 years old. Well, that's just a death sentence, And
I think there's a lot to that, actually. I really do. I think that if those thoughts creep into your head, you should exercise them, because it's not good. Because once in a while I'll start to have thoughts, I'm this age, and I feel like this, and it's negativity you don't need. It's just better to think optimistically about your future, always.
Yeah. Have you ever done any research on Bruce Lipton? He's Bruce Lipton. He was at Stanford University in the 60s. It's kind of like an interesting story. Imagine he was a young intern, and one day in the 60s, he was probably in his early 20s, and he looked in a high-powered microscope on cells, and he noticed, at a certain magnification, that cells had antennas on them. And so he kind of scratched his head. At that time, he was totally, an atheist. He was a scientist, of course, so he didn't believe in, anything except for science.
Right.
And then he thought, antennas, and this was, when we had rabbit antennas and all the TVs. So he thought, okay, well, a TV, it receives a signal, and then from that signal, it broadcasts and it produces a picture. And he goes, And then he, at the same time, he was into quantum theory, and he thought, well, maybe these cells all have antennas, and the quantum field is broadcasting to us, and there's the power, the mechanism that keeps everything alive. These cells are conscious. These cells are aware.
Right.
There's trillions of cells in the human body. Each one is different and distinct, but they're all coherent. They all work with one another. So imagine this, in a matter of 5 minutes, this whole belief system changed.
Think about it. What underlies everything into the smallest particle is there has to be knowledge there.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That has to be the basis of everything.
Yeah.
Well, all living things, for sure, because it's and that thought, it means how does the whole system operate if there isn't a basis of knowledge underneath it all?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a guy named George Bartholomew or something, Bretard. Anyway, this guy in 1920, he had a theory. It's called panentheism, and what that theory is that the entire universe is alive. Back then, scientists would kind of chuckle, yeah. but then years later, you know, a lot of scientists are getting on that bandwagon, and they're, you know, in the quantum field, that yeah, they're saying that there must be intelligence everywhere. You know, there's a unified field, you know, that ties us all, that ties the entire universe together.
Yeah, well, things they don't just operate on inertia. There has to be some energy driving it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Anything that just is propelled by inertia, the inertia runs out of steam.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
You know, push a ball down a bowling ball eventually stops.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so there's got to be energy driving everything.
Uh-huh. So that's what kind of propelled me early. You know, I kind of felt there was a cosmic engine of life.
Yeah.
You know, and that energy doesn't need any fuel. You know, by itself, it's self-generating. You know,
Right.
There's no time for that engine. That engine has always been there. You know, that kind of boggles. I remember as a kid thinking about that. You know, how can something be infinite? You know, and I thought long and hard on that, mind you. And my basically my mind would fry because you can't. You know, and that's where, you know,
get your head around that concept. You really, you can't really fully grasp it.
Exactly. Yeah, I saw this. I got to show you this incredible video that I discovered. There's a guy named David Bohm, who was a a quantum physicist. He was imagine he was 15 years old in high school, and he did a paper on quantum physics. And you know, so all the scientists, well, how can this young kid learn? To make a long story short, he goes to Berkeley. And remember, you know, Oppenheimer, you know, the father of the atomic bomb.
Yeah.
Well, this guy was supposed to be he was a student in Oppenheimer, and he was his favorite and most prestige student. And so the Oppenheimer got the job at Los Alamos to develop the atomic bomb. He wanted David Bohm to come along with him. Well, anyway, David Bohm, he thought outside the box. You know, his politics were outside the box. And this was during the McCarthy era. Remember that, Joe? You know, there's a commie underneath your bed.
Yeah.
But anyway, they wouldn't hire him. You know, he was blacklisted. He had to leave the country because no one would hire him. United States government, you know, once you're blacklisted, and especially you're a quantum physicist, you know, you can't get a job in the United States. So he goes to Israel, and then in Israel, you know, he meets his future wife, and they get married. And a couple of years later, his wife reads this book on a guy named Krishnamurti. And Krishnamurti talked about the observer and what you observe. And then she said, you know, she got interested in that. She says, hey, David, that's what you do. You know, you're a quantum physicist. You do the same thing. You observe the observer, and the observer observes the observed. And he says, yeah, that's right. So anyway, they meet, and then they have a 20-year discussions on the merging of science and mystics. You know, both of them are talking about the same thing. I'll show you that. I'll keep you a link to it.
I've read. I can't remember the guy's name that I read. He's a physicist, and I read a couple of books of his, and they were.
Oh, Stephen Hawkins?
No, not Stephen Hawkins. This was it's. I'll look through my books and I'll let you know who it is.
Okay, yeah.
Anyway, but he talks about how basically there's a merging of a lot of religious thought and quantum physics. It merges. It's not incompatible.
Yeah.
In other words,
Mm-hmm.
as far as the infinite nature of it. God, I wish I could remember his name. I haven't read his books in years.
Oh, okay. Uh-huh.
But he was just, you know, because most scientists are atheists
Yeah.
and they don't believe in anything outside of what is hard science. And this guy said, no, there's room for both. They both can coexist.
Mm-hmm.
And I agree with that. I think there's things outside of science. I mean, they can try to explain it, but I think in nature there's things that man can never know.
Yeah, I definitely.
I mean, until we pass away, and then maybe we'll find out.
But you know, the way I look at the human body is hardwired for that experience. But we're never, you know, imagine we have a car that's sitting in the garage and it's gathering dust, and that car is meant to be driven. And it's the same thing. Our whole nervous system is built to have that experience. But we were never taught that in school, did we? You know, we were never taught. Just think as simple as concentrating on your breath is kind of like the most simplest thing. Breathing is kind of like the key to the universe.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, you know, I remember, you know, as a kid, you know, I would tell people to meditate on their breath, and people would roll their eyes and say, Richard, you know, what are you talking about? And years later, most of my, you know, like acquaintances, you know, I would say, you know, the key to the entire universe is behind your breath. You know, they would roll their eyes, and yet the funny thing is that's our body was hardwired for that.
Right.
You know, but
yeah, I guess that is the source, isn't it?
yeah, but you know, and I remember, or even, you know, good old dear Pat Hubble. I remember hearing a story once when he first started to meditate, and he gave up because, you know, the mind was so powerful. And I wrote a book about, you know, dragons, and so the dragons taught these kids, these Tibetan kids, you know, how to meditate. And about a week later, they came with the dragons and said, "What do I do? My mind, you know, is so powerful. What do I do?" And I feel like I'm going crazy. And then all the dragons would laugh, because that's evolution. Nobody, you know, gets a free ride on that. You know, you have. They say to conquer the mind is the most difficult thing to do in the universe, is conquering the mind. You know, even right now during this epidemic, so many of our friends are totally bored. You know, and when you're bored, you do things that aren't rational, that shouldn't be done. You know, that's why this virus is getting worse and worse, because our boredom inside is driving us to do. We want things to be normal again, but not for a long time, right?
Oh, that's funny. I there's some guy I watch on YouTube, and he makes funny videos about how, especially when a lot of the celebrities that are so narcissistic, and they're just having meltdowns because they can't get their attention fix, you know. They're going crazy because they've weaned themselves, you know, on constant attention, and they're not getting it, and it's driving them nuts. And it's funny. I think it's funny.
Well, it's like the difference between putting someone in solitary confinement in prison. They'll go nuts. But then you would put like a mystic or someone who loves to meditate into a room, and they will love every single moment of it.
Yeah.
And it's a difference. It's the matter of the mind, isn't it? You know.
Yeah. And that's a really difficult thing to Well, I haven't mastered it,
Yeah, well, I haven't either. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
and I don't think it's possible. I mean, it's possible to get better at it.
Hmm.
I don't think it's possible to master it. Um, I think you can. There's some people that can get close, but I'm not one of them.
Yeah.
I wish I was,
Uh-huh.
but my mind is uh, it gets away from me sometimes.
Hmm.
You know,
Well, for,
I have
for everyone.
anxieties. I have anxieties and
Hmm.
frustrations, and I don't. I'm better than I used to be, but
Hmm.
I'm a long ways from
Hmm. Yeah.
being a master.
Yeah. Yeah. And for me, to be honest, over the years, like uh, when I first started meditating, my mind was chattering all the time. And it's
Right.
just like the noise level, on the volume. Slowly over time, it goes down. But I don't know, as you're saying, if it's ever possible to reach a level where there's no mind, especially, while you're alive in this human body, you know.
Right.
So a
Yeah,
person
because you're
can.
dealing with all the foibles of being human.
Yeah, exactly. So a person can be in the center of the hurricane, but even still in the center, there's the small winds of the mind, will still be there. Versus, like a majority of a society, there were like leaves blowing in the wind. We they never stop and
Totally.
wonder.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's a good metaphor. Yeah, I agree with that.
And I think surfing it has kind of taught you, that's where, the further away you are from nature, the more intense the mind will be. You from day one have learned that the ocean cures everything. It eases, it's just a comforter.
No
It brings you into a state of ease. You kind of give up, and it's instead of struggling, nature, it's like a wipeout, right? Well, first things we learned when I was a kid, when you wiped out, don't struggle.
Yeah,
The worse you struggle, the worse it's going to get,
exactly.
Uh,
Yeah, no, that's really true. That's really true. It's always every time I've gotten in the water, it's always been better afterwards. Always.
uh, what was the worst wipeout you ever had, where you really felt, like, oh my gosh, that, uh, how am I going to survive this? I'm sure you've had those maybe in Hawaii.
Yeah, well, there's one that that comes to mind all the time, and when I was over there, I was uh, I was surfing backyards, and which is backyard sunset, and I got over towards Sunset Point, and on this particular swell, as the surf gets bigger as it moves towards proper Sunset Beach. So I was moving that way. I was paddling back out. Now I was sort of dragged over towards like Sunset Point, and I was trying to get through a set. And there was no leashes back then. And and as I kept drifting towards like Rocky Point, the waves kept getting bigger. They step ladder, uh, and I didn't I didn't make it over the one of the last waves of the set, and I tried to hang on to my board, and it threw me back over the falls with my board, and it kind of knocked the wind out of me, and my board just squirted away like a bar of soap. And so I found myself out of breath and getting dragged into the impact zone at sunset, and it was big.
Oh, wow.
And there's no lifeguards. Nobody saw me, you know, because I came from backyards. I wasn't even in the lineup at sunset. And and I just kept getting pounded by these sets, and I was too far out to get in and too far in to get out. And so I just was just getting pounded, and I started to panic. And I said to myself, if you don't panic, you might die. If you continue to panic, you will die.
Wow. Yeah.
And so that I just said that to myself, and it was like the only thing that calmed me down, because I knew the only thing I could do is not panic.
Mm-hmm.
And I was able to get to the beach, and that was my closest call ever in surfing. I didn't know if I was going to make it. I didn't know.
Wow. Wow.
So yeah, that was a serious moment.
Mm-hmm.
But that's my worst.
Uh-huh.
Now, didn't you guys surf Cloud Break?
Yeah, we did. That's scary.
You told me about that. I'll never forget that. You told me about Cloud Break, and I could tell by the way you were telling me that place is radical, gnarly.
Oh gosh. You know, I like surfing for fun, but not for
Yeah.
fun
Yeah.
and death. Here it was, I was surfing, like the North Shore of Maui. I could surf Hokipa, as big as it gets. I would surf places like Pakakalo, and surf, 20-foot faces,
Yeah.
I could do, but Cloud Break, that not the reef, Hawaiian's reef is kindergarten compared to the reef at Cloud Break. Cloud Break, the reef is university level in terms of sharpness.
Wow.
It's alive. It can tear you to shreds.
Wow.
To be honest, I did not have a good time, surfing Cloud Break. Nor did I have a good time even surfing Tavarua. I got restaurants at an incredible day, but that reef's intimidating. Really, I thought Hawaii was intimidating, but this was on a whole different level.
Wow.
You had this incredible power, and only, like restaurants only breaks in probably 3 feet of water. And you got coral that if just the slightest touch will cut you to shreds. So yeah, I thought all my life, I heard about Tavarua.
Right.
I went there. Now Chicama was a story. Oh my gosh, first time I ever heard about Chicama was at your house, sophomore year in high school. You had the Surfer magazine. And they had these perfect lefts. I don't know if you remember it, but there was I think it was a cover of the magazine, and they just had these lefts. At that time, it's probably one of the longest waves in the world. You could ride a wave for over a mile.
Isn't that Peru?
In Peru, yeah. And it's offshore winds. So and it breaks best during Holy Week, Easter week. So I went there during the perfect time, and I just had myself and a surfer from Argentina.
Wow.
So we surf like 6-foot perfect waves. I mean, every day I would think, well, I sure wish my dear friend Nick was here. It was when I saw that, first thing that came to my mind is there is a God.
That's awesome.
It was the most perfection surf break I ever saw, because the winds blows offshore all the time. I never saw onshore winds. It's on the desert, so the winds just come from the desert and out to sea.
So that's the best surf you've ever ridden.
Yeah, it's the best surf. Yeah, by far. Yeah.
Wow, that's impressive.
Yeah.
That's
and back then it was real cheap. We stayed at a guy named El Hombre. That means the man, and he just had these simple huts and I would have like seafood, fresh fish. It's a fisherman's village, so they had all kinds of incredible fish. And then they had, vegetables and rice and beans. I think I was there for about 2 weeks, just living there, and just, chilling out.
Nice.
Uh-huh.
No McDonald's?
Pardon me?
No McDonald's?
Yeah, no McDonald's. Yeah.
Doesn't sound like McDonald's.
Yeah.
It sounds like you were eating a good diet at that place.
Oh yeah. Oh, definitely. Yeah. Uh-huh.
There's nothing like that. And is Peruvian food? God, I had Peruvian food up here.
Ceviche.
Well, ceviche, and it was too hot.
Oh, was it? Okay. Oh.
Yeah. How was your Peruvian food that you had? Was it too hot for you?
No, not at all. Actually, I thought Peruvian food was kind of, especially what I had, what was super mild. Ceviche. Imagine I was surfing this place called Senoritas in Caballeros. Imagine having a bay, and so there's incredible lefts, probably about 100, 200-yard lefts on this side, and then on the other side of the bay were rights, Caballeros, and so there'd be like 100, 200-yard rights. So I just surfed it for about 6 hours straight. Got out of the water, and this restaurant on the beach was closed. But when they heard, I haven't eaten all day, they made fresh ceviche for me, and all it was fish, lime juice, onions, and masa. And the masa was corn. The corn kernels were probably about that big, let's see here, about that big.
Ooh,
so,
wow.
Yeah. So wow, that was, to be honest, that was one of the best meals that I've ever had. And so it wasn't spicy. The only spice was cilantro, fresh coriander. Yeah.
What could you recall the type of fish it was? Like probably rockfish?
I'm not sure. I mean, yeah, I don't remember. Yeah. All I know is it was delicious.
Yeah. Well, those simple meals that you get, they're usually the best. I had lobster taco or lobster burritos deep down in Baja. This was a house, and it just said, it had a sign that said, I think it said comida on it, and we just pulled in. I didn't know what to expect. And we had lobster burritos, and I still to this day, it's the best meal I've ever had.
Wow.
Just a funky little shack.
Mm-hmm.
But those faraway places, I mean, some of the food you get is just outrageous. The way they prepare it is like nothing you've ever had,
I remember you telling me about your mom making mole.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, she was a good cook.
Uh-huh.
She was a good cook. She was a good cook, and I remember I didn't like exotic foods for a period of my life. I can't remember what grade I was in, maybe 6th grade.
Mm-hmm.
And so she made me a hamburger every night for a year. And while they were eating gourmet meals.
What I remember about your house is for lunch you would have liver pate sandwiches.
We would have those, and remember she would also make us avocado, melted cheese, sprouts, tomatoes on wheatberry bread. Remember those?
Oh yeah. Oh gosh. Oh yeah. Yeah.
She treated us good as
yeah, she
in the culinary department.
Yeah. Did I ever tell you that's my passion is ethnic food cooking?
I know it is.
Yeah. Okay. So we won't go into that area.
We could go deep. Well, you could. I could. I could tell you about burgers. I mean, yeah.
Well, I always tell my friends now about your mom with the art. It's kind of, as you're saying, is what you pay attention to at the time. You're kind of ignorant of your house was full all that incredible artwork, which I liked it, but I had no idea, and I didn't even ask, I should have been, inquisitive. Hey, my mom did this,
We were young. We were
so,
young, I mean, our interests were elsewhere.
yeah,
But I found it interesting, and I appreciate it much more now as an adult than I did when I was a kid. I mean, I just grew up with it, and and a lot of her stuff was a little bit more on the abstract side, and I didn't. My brain wasn't ready to process abstracts at that point. I needed to be painted a pretty picture that I could understand. You know
yeah.
what I mean? I
Uh-huh.
I didn't really understand impressionism and seeing things seeing different things in every piece, as each person could see a little bit something different in some of her pieces, but I wasn't sophisticated enough as a kid to really appreciate that.
Mhm. And I think your mom's paintings. Have you heard who Carl Jung is with archetype symbols?
Yeah.
I think paintings like that touches a part of our subconscious that we're not even aware of.
Yeah.
So you take a look at that painting, and there's a symbol represents something. So those paintings represent maybe a part of us that we don't even know
Yeah.
that exists. It's kind of like someone's knocking at your door, right? And that's what the paintings kind of represent. Knock knock, someone is here.
Yeah. Well, I get a lot of satisfaction from looking at especially the big watercolor. I love it, and it always gave me a nice feeling to look at it. It had a really nice flow about it, and but I like it even more now as an adult. And but you're right, it evokes a feeling,
Mhm.
and I think you hit on something, because that's what good art does. It
Yeah.
stirs your emotion,
Mhm. And that kind of affects you say your subconscious and your genes. So somehow your mom's genes are they're part of yours, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
so those talents that your mom have, there maybe you don't have the same talents per se, but you have that same talent of being creative, inquisitive.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I think, yeah, I like to think that. I mean, it's just expressed in a different way,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
and my dad was talented too. He was actually wanted to be a writer, but necessity, uh, demanded that he'd be a machinist. That's where he could make good money doing as a machinist. But he really wanted to be a writer,
Hmm.
and he had really an inquisitive mind. And I feel like I'm a lot more like my dad uh, in that regard as I've gotten older,
Yeah. Uh-huh.
because he was, the thing that he picked up on you was that um, he was into computers back then at their inception,
Wow. Wow.
and
Uh-huh.
he was at a pretty advanced age to be diving into that. But he was like fearless with anything that was mechanical or complicated.
Hmm.
So he was doing computing from the get go, and he was intrigued, and he knew that was the future.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I didn't. I I
Hmm.
I I didn't see anything in it like he did.
Hmm.
And I've been computer basically illiterate till till probably 12 years ago. I mean, I I'm still lame when it comes to tech,
Mm-hmm.
but
And,
he embraced it.
mm-hmm. And I think your dad also saw my brothers and I's past, because, you know, as you remember, we were brought up in the house of the future.
Right.
So we had that same kind of inventions, you know, like your dad have, in order to create those parts for the aerospace industry. And you know, our father and grandfather had an aerospace company called Fletcher Aviation.
Oh, wow.
So
Interesting.
so it's kind of amazing, you know, that how your dad, he was pretty right on, you know, by tapping in, you know, he had some kind of a ability there, you know, especially, you know, because I look back years later. Yeah, Mr. Roth, yeah, that guy, he was pretty incredible for its time. You couldn't explain that to anybody, you know, back then, you know.
Well, he was really understated,
Uh-huh. Yeah.
really understated. And so he wasn't really a boisterous personality. He was a low key guy, but
Mm-hmm.
he was real smart. He told me something one time. I never forgot it. I was so sure about myself about something. You know, I was pontificating about something. I was in my early 20s or something. And I can't even remember the subject. But I was so sure of myself. And at the end of my little soliloquy, he goes, "Don't be so sure." And after all these years, I've learned that everything I was saying was wrong, and he was right.
Mm-hmm.
He was cautioning me, "Don't be
Mm-hmm.
so sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're young. This is what you believe now.
Mm-hmm.
You're, you're going to learn different, you know." But he
Uh-huh.
just wasn't bombastic about it. He
Yeah.
didn't argue with me,
Uh-huh.
and he didn't say I was wrong.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
said, "Don't be so sure."
Yeah. Uh-huh.
I'll never forget it.
Uh-huh.
It's like he knew a lot more than he let on sometimes.
Uh-huh. That's
So
like that song, remember Father and Son with Cat Stevens.
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
think
yeah.
that would be really, you know, your dad, you know,
Right.
talking to you, you know.
Yeah,
You know, take
exactly.
your time, you know, think a lot, you know.
Yeah, that's a great song. I
Yeah.
haven't thought about that in a long time, for sure.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah, we're definitely getting wiser, you know.
I hope
Uh,
so.
yeah,
I hope
hopefully,
so.
yeah.
I hope I'm not getting dumber.
Yeah.
That would be a disaster.
Uh-huh.
But anyway, I should probably get wrapping this up soon, Rick.
Yeah, definitely. So, yeah, oh boy, this has been incredible. You know, uh, 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 I definitely over the years love our friendship, and it just kind of grows and morphs and changes and it gets better. So,
No, it doesn't change that much.
no,
I don't,
but
I don't,
I mean,
I don't,
yeah,
I don't see you any differently, really much than I
yeah.
ever did. You know?
Just only this, right? You know.
Yeah. Well, you've got the pandemic due, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I've been able to get out and get a haircut once. I got to, you know,
Uh-huh.
but yeah, I don't think we changed that much. You know, I just saw Dale. He just left this morning, and it's like we're still basically the same people,
Yeah, yeah. Uh-huh.
which is good because that 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 just tells me I had a good judge of character even at a young age.
Yeah,
You
yeah, yeah.
know, I think that's really important. You
Hmm.
know, friends that I've had when I was young, they're still my friends, and I think that's I don't know. I think I've done chosen well in that department.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. You have a friend from what Molokai? What's his name?
Ron Van Ornum.
Yeah, Van Ork. Yeah, you
Yeah,
guys.
And I think he's either right on the verge or he just had a hip replacement. And I was talking to you the other day about that.
Yeah.
And I'm going to have one in September. So that's my last surgery for some time.
Mm-hmm.
But unfortunately, I need it. My hip is really in bad shape.
Yeah, you told me. Yeah.
But it's going to get me back out in the water. So that's really the purpose of it. I mean, I can limp around with some pain.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not completely debilitated, but I really want to get back out in the water. I miss it.
Mm-hmm. Well, best of luck on that. Yeah.
Thanks.
Send you whatever came my way to when you're in surgery to have the surgeon do the perfect thing. Yeah. So you come out smiling, short recovery, and then surf.
Exactly. Well, thanks. I appreciate that, Rick.
Uh-huh. All right. Well, I call this Talk Story with Nick Roth.
Right on. I enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun, Rick.
And, okay.
Give my best. Nick. Give my best to your brother. I always like.
I will. Yeah. Give my best to your wife. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. All right. Bye, Rick.
Bye.